Hello, students who are taking Math for Business and Finance and Math Applications. We're doing the theory videos for Chapter 12, Compound Interest and Present Value, and this will probably be the last video that we'll make for this particular chapter, and then we'll move on to the drill problems and word problems and the summary practice test. All right, so let me get down to the right slide here. Okay, all right, so one of the things that you need to pay attention to is when you're compounding is your time frames. Now, we've seen this formula, interest is equal to principal times rate times time, all the way back in chapter 10 for simple interest, and chapter 11 for discounting, now in this chapter for compounding, and it'll be in the next chapter for annuities. But the thing that I want to point out here is about time frames. Okay, the time frames have to be equal, right? What do I mean? Let's say you're borrowing $100,000, okay, and it's at 12% interest, and it's for 30 years, okay? And let's say you want to know how much your monthly payment is, okay? Here's the thing. This interest rate here is an annual interest rate, right? This number of periods is in years, so annual is equal to years, right? Throughout the same time frame. But you're looking for a monthly payment. Well, a month is obviously not annual, and it certainly isn't yearly. So what you need to do is you need to keep that in mind and convert everything into months so that you can be able to do the calculation. To do that, for your interest rate, generally you're going to divide, okay, by whatever time frame that you're going to be working with. I mean, in this case here, monthly, so we're going to divide by 12. But if I were trying to figure out something that was quarterly, right, that would be, 4 quarters in a year. Obviously, semi-annually is twice a year. Weekly is 52 times a year. And of course, daily depends upon whether you're using exact or ordinary method, would be 360 or 365. Okay. So if we wanted to know what the monthly payment is, we're going to take our 12%, our interest rate, because that's being expressed annually, and we're going to divide by 12, and we would get 1% for the month. Okay. If we were looking at it from a weekly perspective, we would divide by 52. Okay, or quarterly, we'd divide by 4, which would give us like 3%. Right? Now, for the number of periods, we're going to multiply. Okay, so for 30 years, we would multiply by 12 if we wanted to know what it is monthly, and that means it would be, there's 360 months in 30 years. So once we have converted our interest rate into a monthly and our number of periods into a monthly, now we're able to calculate the monthly payment much easier. It's not to say that we have to do it that way. I mean, yes, you can do the calculations using 12% interest and 30 years, but you're going to have a little bit more difficult time converting into, you're going to have to make some kind of conversion there in order to be able to get it into a monthly time frame. For example, I mean, I could figure out what the interest is on $100,000 at 12%, all right, for 30 years. Okay, so then I'm going to have this interest rate, this amount of interest for 30 years, all right, and then I'm going to have to divide by, I'm going to have to convert the 30 years to get all the way back to monthly. Okay, so it is possible to do it, but I've always found that it's just much easier to start out up front by saying, okay, what am I looking for? What time frame? Okay, and when I know what time frame I'm trying to solve for, then I can just go over and I can do the conversion real simple and easy, because we're talking about small numbers, from my interest rate and my number of periods, and then I'm working with the same time frame, and I don't have to do the conversion later on. Okay, So that's one important thing that I don't think you'll find in the textbook. It's just a little hint and help that I work with. Okay. Now, lastly, nominal yield versus effective rate. Okay. Let's think about this from a different perspective. Okay. Let's say I'm going to borrow that same $1,000. Okay, but and I'm going to borrow at 12%. Okay. Well, my 12% is my nominal yield. Why? Because on the $12,000 at 12%, I'm going to end up with $120. Okay, that's the minimum I'm going to get. Right? Now, the effective rate. Now, be careful here. Okay, I'm going to do the effective rate twice, and there's a reason why I'm going to do it twice. Right, first of all, my effective rate, my annual percentage yield, is equal to my interest for 1 year over the principal. Okay, this is the formula. Now, if I went and said, okay, let me plug in these same numbers here, I'm going to have $1,000 at 12%. Well, my interest for the year was $120, and I'm going to divide by my principal of $1,000, and that's going to give me a 12% APY, okay, which is the same as my nominal yield. Right? Why is that? Well, because we're talking about 1 year. We're not talking about compounding. Notice I didn't say anything about compounding, okay? But if I went and said, okay, let's say that my interest rate is 12% and I'm going to compound quarterly for 1 year. Okay. Well, now what do I need to do? Now I need to go back and I need to do this conversion that I was talking about here, okay? Because I'm talking about a quarterly time frame. I'm not talking about a yearly time frame. So I need to take my 12% and I'm going to divide it by 4 and get 3%, okay? And my 1 year, 1 year, okay, I'm going to multiply it by 4 because remember, quarterly is 4, and that means my number of periods is going to be 4, okay? And now when I go and I look at my future value table, okay, I'm up here, and let me erase this. When I look at my future value table, I'm going to be looking under the 3% column, and I'm going to be looking under the number of periods for 4. I have a factor of 1.1255. Okay, so when I come back down here, I know that that factor is 1.1255. All right. Now, I'm looking for, in order to figure out my APY, I need to know what my interest is. Okay. Well, if that's my factor, and I borrowed $1,000, I'm going to multiply that. And that's going to 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. So I end up with $1,125.50. Okay. And I subtract out the $1,000 of principal, means my interest is $125.50. Notice that that is not the same as the $120 of my nominal yield, right? It's not the same. Okay? That's because of the effect of compounding. And on this case here, it's quarterly. So I have $125.50 as my interest for the year over my $1,000 in principal, which means I have a 12.55% APY. It's not the same as my nominal yield. Okay, so notice that I had said, no, I'm doing this calculation two different, I'm going to be doing it twice. Originally, I had started out by saying, here's what my nominal yield is at 12%, means I have $120 in interest. Great. And my first calculation went and said, okay, I'm doing the effective rate, but I was using it as an annual rate, and I ended up with the same $120. So my effective rate was the same as the the nominal yield. But as soon as I went and started doing a compounding effect, in this case here quarterly, so what do I need to do? Oh, well, now I need to convert my interest rate and I need to convert my number of periods. And when I convert that interest rate and that number of periods, I come up to the table and I look on the table and I find that factor. Okay, so now when I get that factor, I multiply it by the interest. I'm sorry, I multiply it by the principal, and that's going to give me a total amount. Okay, and that total amount is the principal plus the interest. And so when I subtract out the principal, right, less the principal, I'm only left with the interest of 125.50. And as you can see, that interest is not the same as the nominal yield. Okay, it's more due to the compounding effect. And so when I plug it into the formula, right, when I plug it into this formula, my interest is the 125.50 divided by the 1,000 gives me an effective rate of 12.55, which is greater because of the compounding. Okay, so that's how the effective rate works. You want to, figure out the interest due to compounding and divide it by the principal. Okay, to get you an effective rate. You can't just automatically say my effective rate is my nominal rate or whatever stated rate of interest is. Okay. So go ahead and rewind this video and watch it a couple of times and watch the others. I realized that I had been a little bit monotone, and I was just, in my mind, I just had straight, here's the information, here's the information. So you might want to go back and rewatch it. Definitely watch the last video, which was sort of a summary, number 3 there. That's a summary of what was in number 1 and 2. And then, pick up with this video and realize that you had gotten a little bit more information in these videos than you had gotten in the textbook. You had a little bit of a better understanding of why things are the way they are. Okay. And of course, now when we go and do our problems, well, we're going to have a lot of practice using these tables, which is what I recommend you use for doing the problems instead of trying to use a financial calculator. It's fine to use a financial calculator as long as you're confident in how you're using it, but your calculator is not our calculator, and we really can't support your calculator. You're going to have to figure out and read the owner's manual and learn how to use it yourself. Okay, so with that, I'm finished, and I will be seeing you all for the drill problems next.